Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you with us on this live stream. Where are you joining us from? Do type into the chat box. We'd love to say hello to you. To let you know a little bit more about us, I'm Anna, and I'm joined today by Paul Woodfall, one of our brilliant teacher trainers here at Oxford University Press. You might recognise him from our other live streams and events. Hi, Paul.
Hello, welcome again. Nice to
We've
see you, Anna. How are you?
Very well, thank you. It's nice to see you as well. We've got people joining us from all over the world. It's great to have you join us today and a warm welcome to you. If you're just joining us, do type into the chat box where you're calling in from. We'd love to know where you're calling in from today. I can see we've got people calling in from Chile, from Moscow, from Pakistan, from Argentina and Cambodia. So we've got a great mix of people joining us today on the call. Today, Paul will be doing an interactive session and reading from one of our popular graded readers, A Christmas Carol. This graded reader is from our Dominoes series from the starter level, which is an A1 CFR level. And it is one of our English Language Foundation award winners, so you're in for a real treat with this story. If you've got any questions or comments during the session, do type them below, and I'll pass you over now to Paul to enjoy the reading.
Welcome, everybody from Bangladesh. Thank you, Ataur, Faizan. I'm not sure where you're from. Mark Cortez from Bolivia. Ivan Dai from Taiwan. Hello from Tiana from Lebanon. And Fatin as well from Lebanon. Great to have you with us. And we're going to read this story here, which is A Christmas Carol. You may well have heard of this very famous, well-loved story by Charles Dickens. It's about getting a second chance in life. It's set in London in the early 1840s. And before I read the story to you, let me just tell you that it's an adapted version of the original. It's from Oxford Dominoes Graded Reader Series, Cepher level A1, so it's quite an easy read, but for those of you who are A1 level students, it's going to be difficult to follow me as I read. For those of you who are at higher levels, this should be very simple for you to understand, and I'm going to give you some background as well. Dickens wrote this story about 5 years after he wrote Oliver Twist. And in Oliver Twist, there's a famous line with Oliver in a school for orphan children, street children in London, with his empty bowl of porridge, goes up to the teacher and says, "Can I have some more, please, sir?" And that was Dickens commenting on life in the ragged schools, as they were known at the time. He took long walks around London. He visited different cities in the country and wrote about everything he saw. At the height of imperial Britain, he saw a lot of poverty, a lot of disease, people cramped in very bad living conditions, and he wanted to make a social comment about what was happening. As many more people left the land to go and live in cities because of industrialization, there was a huge price to pay. And he wanted his readers to think about social justice. Of course, his readers were literate, they could read, they could afford to buy the book, which he published at 5 shillings a copy, handmade drawings, beautiful Christmas present to give. Of course, he was writing for the readers who could afford to read and comment on his work. And he was writing about very poor, destitute women, children, and men living on the streets, hungry and cold, with no education, a lot of disease and early death. And very often the only place for these people to go was a workhouse. You will hear this mentioned in the story. And a workhouse was a building where poor people worked a lot, doing manual labor for some food and a bed for the night. And of course, many others were in prison for pickpocketing, stealing, for small crimes, and they used to rot in prison and die there. So these are the conditions that surround us as we read the story. I want us to think about them. And hello to everybody. We're getting people from all over: Vietnam, Turkey, Mozambique, the USA. Um, yep. And of course, Ator says, what is the meaning of prison? Prison is a place where you send prisoners, people who commit crimes. Ator. Rahman, prison is somewhere you do not want to go. And a workhouse was very similar to a prison. From Pakistan, from Algeria, from India, lots of different people. Hi, Sana, how are you? And Deborah from Virginia, hello. And Maggie from Dubai, hello, Maggie. Wonderful to have you with us. So these are the conditions, and let's move on to the book. The main character. Have you heard of Ebenezer Scrooge? Ebenezer Scrooge. In the comments, if you've heard of Ebenezer Scrooge, say yes. What do you know about Scrooge? I can tell you something. He's so famous that the word Scrooge is now part of the English language. It's a noun, and it tells us about a person who is very unwilling to spend any money, extremely mean. Stingy is a great word there from, thank you, Ki Duyen from Vietnam, I believe. Thank you so much. A bitter, says Stella, a bitter guy, very unhappy, stingy, mean. Yes, Faison says non-verbal expression. I wonder why you say that. A character, as we see, the main character in this story that I'm going to read. And Fatin says greedy. Thank you for those comments. And let's see, now we've got the main character. What about the other characters? Very quickly, we have Belle, Fanny. These are the two young ladies in the story. I'll tell you who they are in a moment. And the three men we have are Bob Cratchit, Fred, and Jacob Marley. Welcome, Lee Tank Phuoc. I hope I've got your name right. This is your first time joining the live stream. Welcome to you. I believe you are also Vietnamese. Welcome and hello to Jolanta Lamprecht, who says, humbug. That's what we associate with Scrooge, Jolanta. Ah, yes, indeed. So you know the story already. Faison says angry. Indeed, he is an angry man, is Mr. Scrooge. So these are the characters, and let's have a look at Belle. If you haven't read the book, Belle was engaged to marry Scrooge, but she doesn't marry him because he loves money more than her. So that's Belle. Fanny helps her brother Scrooge. So Fanny is Scrooge's sister, and when she's 13 and he is 15, she helps him. They're the two. Thank you, Nguyen. You say the teacher reads Vietnamese names very well. Well, thank you very much for that. I had the pleasure of touring parts of Vietnam many years ago. A wonderful, wonderful country. So, Belle and Fanny are the two women in the story, and then we have the men. We have Bob Cratchit, who works for Scrooge in his offices. He has a family to support, but Scrooge pays him a very small salary. His son, Tiny Tim, is very sick. We don't know exactly what sickness we have, but there's a key word which is a crutch, and he can't walk very well. He needs to support himself under the arm to help him walk. So possibly Tiny Tim has an illness of polio or maybe tuberculosis. Mario is telling us that on Dutch TV there was a contemporary live musical version. So you know the story, Mario. Okay. Tiny Tim, very sick. Fred is Scrooge's nephew and wants to be friends with his old Uncle Scrooge. He comes to see him at the office at the very beginning. We'll meet Fred, and he wants to wish Scrooge a Merry Christmas and invite him to his home for Christmas. Um, Finally, we have Jacob Marley. Jacob is Scrooge's old business partner and, we think, a friend. He died 7 years ago, but appears in the story as a ghost or a spirit to help his old friend Scrooge. So watch out for Jacob Marley. So here we have the characters. Just before I begin reading, look at that. Fanny helps Scrooge when she is 13 and he is 15. She turns out to be, because Fred is the nephew, Scrooge's nephew, so Fanny is Fred's mother. Just before we start the reading, in the comments, can you remember who Belle is? Let us share in the comments your memory of who the characters are before I begin chapter 1. Hello, Carla from Tuscany. So who is Belle? Who is Bob Cratchit? And who is Jacob Marley? Do you remember? Tell us in the comments. Thank you, Tiana. Belle is his wife. Well, Tiana, I didn't say wife. She was engaged. She was going to be his wife, Tiana, but we'll find out. She didn't want to marry him because he only loved money. Robert, Scrooge's fiance. Jolanta says Scrooge's girlfriend. In those days, fiance is a better word. Stella, Jacob was Scrooge's partner. Good. Thank you, Stella. And he died 7 years ago, so we'll be meeting him as a ghost. I've already mentioned Fanny, that's Scrooge's sister, who was 13 and he was 15 when she helped him. And Fred is her son. So let's begin with the reading. And thank you so much for your comments. Chapter 1, I shall begin the reading. Ebenezer Scrooge. When our story begins, Jacob Marley is dead. Does Ebenezer Scrooge know that? Of course he does. Scrooge and Marley are the names on the front of his offices in London. Scrooge remembers his old friend well. What a good worker, he thinks. But then Marley dies. Not many people are very sorry. Scrooge is Marley's only friend in the end. He leaves Marley's name on the front door. New visitors to the office sometimes call Ebenezer Mr. Scrooge and sometimes Mr. Marley. It doesn't really matter to him. Old Scrooge has a cold face. He's very careful with money. His eyes are red. His thin mouth is blue and his hair is white. His office is always cold. He doesn't feel it. He walks through the coldest rain and never stops. Scrooge always speaks angrily. He has no friends. When he's walking through the streets, nobody smiles. Nobody says, Scrooge, when can you visit me? No hungry man asks Scrooge for money. No little child says to him, what's the time, please? No visitor asks him, where's Oxford Street? The street dogs run when Scrooge arrives because they're afraid of him. And all of this pleases Ebenezer. He doesn't like being nice. He loves it when people stay away from him. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon on December the 24th, the day before Christmas, Scrooge is in his office. It's a cold, dark day. The door to Scrooge's office is open. He's watching his clerk, Bob Cratchit, at work. The fire in Scrooge's office isn't big, but the fire next to Bob is very little. Bob wants a bigger fire, but when he asks for it, Scrooge says,
Do you want to stay in your job, Cratchit?
The clerk goes back to his desk. He wants to feel warm, so he wears his old scarf in the office, but it doesn't help much. Just then, Scrooge's nephew Fred arrives. Happy Christmas, Uncle! He smiles. His face is red from the cold street.
Bah!
Scrooge says. His mouth is thinner than usual.
Humbug!
Christmas is a humbug, Uncle? You don't truly think that?
I do.
Scrooge answers.
Why are you happy at Christmas, nephew? You don't have much money, and Christmas things are always expensive.
But so why you are angry, Uncle? Fred laughs. Ha! You have lots of money, Scrooge says.
Bah! Humbug!
Again. Smile, Uncle, Fred tells him. It's Christmas time.
Smile? Why?
Scrooge says.
I don't like Christmas. Every Christmas I'm a year older. It's an expensive time, a time when I have no money. When people say, Happy Christmas, I say, Humbug!
Uncle, please. Christmas is a nice time. It's a time for friends and family, a time when we give. Bob Cratchit is listening. He claps excitedly at this. Scrooge looks angrily at his clerk.
Any more of that, and you're going to lose your job for Christmas.
Bob says nothing. He goes back to his work. Uncle, come and eat with us tomorrow, Fred says.
No, get out of here.
Oh, come and eat with us.
No, I don't like your wife. Why are you with her?
Because I love her.
Because you love her? That's worse than Happy Christmas. Good afternoon.
But you never visit my house, Uncle, not now and not before. So why are you speaking about my wife now?
Good afternoon.
I want nothing from you, Uncle, but let's be friends.
Good afternoon,
Scrooge says. Oh, Uncle, why can't you say yes and eat with us on Christmas Day? I'm sorry and I don't understand, but now I must go. Happy Christmas and a very happy New Year to you.
Good afternoon,
Scrooge says finally. Bob Cratchit takes Fred to the front door. He says, Happy Christmas, quietly, before Fred leaves. Just then, two fat men in tall hats come through the open door. They give their hats to Bob and tell him their names. Bob takes the two men through to Scrooge's offices. So, let's have a quick quiz on chapter 1. In the comments, tell me, are these statements true or false? Scrooge has lots of friends. When you don't believe something, you can say, bah, humbug. And number 3, Scrooge hasn't got a lot of money. True or false? Hab Ritti says number 1 is false. Okay, Hab. So Scrooge hasn't got a lot of friends, you think? And a lot of you are agreeing. Afsane from Iran says false too. Saida says false. And Yolanta has already given us all the answers. Thank you, Yolanta. And let's move on to number 2. True or false? Number 2 is true. Le Tan Fouak says true. And Mohammed Shaheen Reza says 3 is false. We're moving on to number 3. So there we have it. Thank you, Fatin. False, true, and false. Let's see. Yes, correct. Well done, everybody. False, true, and false. Scrooge doesn't have a lot of friends, but he has a lot of money. He says at Christmas, I don't have a lot of money, but he does. And he likes to say, bah, humbug. There we go. So, who are these two gentlemen who come to visit? Let's move on now to the two visitors who come to visit Scrooge. The taller of the two fat men looks in his little black book. Is this is this Scrooge and Marley's office? He asks.
It is.
Scrooge answers. And are you Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? The man asks.
Marley's dead these 7 years to this day,
Says Scrooge. He remembers the night before Christmas 7 years earlier. Oh, I'm sorry, but perhaps you can give something for poor families, the man says.
No, thank you,
Answers Scrooge quickly. Oh, at Christmas time, we must help more than usual, the man tells him.
Why?
Scrooge asks.
Are there no prisons or workhouses?
Well, yes, there are.
Good,
Scrooge says.
so poor people can go and live there. It's better than the streets.
But most people don't want to do that. They want to be with friends and family at Christmas. They want warm beds and they want to eat and drink well. Your money can help. How much can I put under your name in my book, Mr. Scrooge?
Nothing.
Oh, do you want to give money but not put your name?
I want you to go. I don't like eating and drinking a lot at Christmas, so I don't want to help poor people to do these things. I give lots of money every year to the prisons and the workhouses. Poor people with no homes, well, they must go there.
But most of them don't need a prison. And they don't like workhouses. Lots of people die in workhouses.
So they can die. We don't need all these people alive today. Ha. Look, there's the door. Good afternoon.
Scrooge does not want to help. The two men understand, so they leave. The afternoon is darker now and colder. People are getting the last things from the shops for Christmas. A boy stands out in the street in front of Scrooge's office. He begins singing a Christmas carol through the keyhole. But when he looks through the keyhole, he sees Scrooge's angry face. The boy runs away. At 8 o'clock, it's time to close the office.
Are you going to want a holiday tomorrow?
Scrooge asks Bob Cratchit. Oh, yes, Mr. Scrooge. Is that okay?
No, it's not okay. I lose money when you don't work.
But it's my only holiday in the year, Mr. Scrooge, Bob says.
Have it then,
Scrooge answers.
but you must come back early. A lot earlier. In the next morning, okay?
All right, Bob says with a smile. Then he runs home to his family and plays happily with his children. Scrooge walks alone through the dark London streets to a big old office building. He lives and sleeps in it, but his home is the only home there. It's his building now.
Jacob Marley's old building, Scrooge remembers. But Marley's dead these 7 years and doesn't need it.
Scrooge stands at the front door with his key. He sees the big knocker before him. Suddenly, it is not a knocker. It is the face of Jacob Marley. And it's looking at him. Scrooge looks back at Marley's face. But now it's the door knocker again.
Humbug, Scrooge says. But is it humbug?
Scrooge opens the front door and goes in. Then he lights a candle and goes up to his rooms. He closes his room door behind him with the key. After that, he puts his hat and coat on a chair near the door. Then he lights a second candle. Aha! Well, let's have a look. Chapter 2. The two gentlemen. Scrooge does this time not true or false, but a quick quiz. Can you begin and end the sentence? Scrooge doesn't help. The beginning, is it A, B, or C for number one? Scrooge doesn't help the two visitors who are obviously coming from a charity. They want to help the poor with donations of money to help the poor. The two men leave his office. A, B, or C? And Scrooge sees. What does he see? In the comments, please, your answers before we read chapter 3. Scrooge doesn't help. Is it A, because he doesn't want to give them money to help the poor? Is it B, because he thinks poor people should go to live in prison or workhouses? The two men leave. We have some answers coming in. And we have Annalisa Carabano, who says, number one, Scrooge doesn't help because he thinks poor people should go to live in prison or workhouses. Number two, the two men leave because Scrooge doesn't want to give them money to help the poor. And number three, Scrooge sees Jacob Marley's face in the door knocker. Thank you very much for those correct answers. Sorry, Miriam, not quite right. The two visitors. Here we have the answers. Number one is B. He doesn't help them because he thinks poor people should go to live in prison or workhouses. Number two, the two men leave because Scrooge doesn't want to give them money to help the poor. These two men are obviously working in a charitable way. Charity. And Scrooge sees Jacob Marley's face in the door knocker when he arrives home. Remember, Jacob Marley appears as a ghost. And this is what happens when Scrooge is about to go to bed. Let's have a look at Jacob Marley's ghost. Chapter 3. Scrooge has a warm drink near the fire, but he sees Jacob Marley's face in everything. Humbug, he cries. Suddenly, an old bell on the wall moves noisily. Then all the bells in the building, upstairs and downstairs, make a noise. A minute later, they stop. After that, Scrooge hears a different noise far away downstairs. It's the noise of chains. Soon this noise begins coming upstairs. In stories, you often read about ghosts in chains. Scrooge remembers. The chains come very near.
Humbug, this isn't happening,
cries Scrooge. But just then, the ghost of Jacob Marley walks through the door. Scrooge's face goes white. It is Marley, but Scrooge can see through him. Old Marley's wearing a long chain of keys and money books and bags of money around him, so he cannot move very quickly. He has a big bandage around his head, too, so he can't open his mouth very easily.
What do you want with me?
Scrooge asks coldly. A lot, Marley's ghost answers.
Can you sit down?
Scrooge asks. I can, the ghost answers. It sits in the chair near the fire in front of Scrooge. I am truly here, you know, the ghost says.
I don't know about that,
Scrooge answers. But you can see and hear me.
Oh, perhaps I'm ill. Perhaps I can't see or hear very well. Perhaps something bad from my dinner is doing all this, and you're not truly here.
The ghost looks at him with its dead eyes.
You're humbug!
Scrooge laughs. The ghost gives a terrible cry. It takes the bandage from around its head, and its mouth opens big and black.
All right, you're Marley's ghost, but why are you here?
Look at my chains, the ghost says. The ghosts of all bad men wear them. You have a chain around you too, Ebenezer. Scrooge looks down. He can see nothing. Your chain is bigger than my chain, but I can help you. Forget your job and your money. Remember friends and family. Help people. You must change and be a better man.
Oh, don't say that, Jacob. Be nice to me.
Listen, Marley answers. I can't stay long. Before I leave, I must tell you something important. 3 ghosts are going to visit you.
3 ghosts? Oh, no, thank you,
Scrooge says. They're going to help you. The first ghost is coming tomorrow morning at 1 o'clock. The second and third ghosts are going to come in the next 2 nights.
Oh, can they all come on one night and finish sooner?
Scrooge asks. Marley's ghost puts up his hand. Remember me, Ebenezer. It puts the bandage around its head again, then with its chain in its hand, walks to the window. This slowly opens. Scrooge can now hear the cries of many ghosts in chains in the dark night. Marley's ghost listens and cries with them. Then it flies through the window and away. Suddenly, all the ghosts in chains go from the night sky, and Scrooge closes the window quickly. He feels tired, so he goes to bed and is soon sleeping. Boing! Scrooge opens his eyes when the church clock strikes. Oh, 1 o'clock, he thinks. Time for the first ghost? Oh. Suddenly, the room is light and the bed curtains are open. Well, Jacob Marley's ghost has visited him and told him about the 3 ghosts that will visit him at night. Let's have a look at these ghosts. The 3 ghosts in our story are spirits of Christmas, or ghosts, same word, spirit or ghost. And they represent the past, the present, and the future. I'm going to show you some illustrations from the book, and I want you to tell me in the comments section, which ghosts are they? Let's have a look. Which one is this? In the comments, tell me, is this the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, or the ghost of the future? Good afternoon, Cosetta. Nice for you to join us. And thank you for the answers. Miriam Palomo says the ghost of the future. Miriam, why do you think it's the ghost of the future? Interesting. Tiana agrees with you, Miriam. Tiana says the ghost of the future. Everybody agrees. Yep. Okay, so there we have the ghost of the future wearing rags. Black, no face, with a luminous eyes. Everybody agrees that's the ghost of the future. Right. What about this ghost? Is it the past or the present? Interesting, different type of ghost with a smiling face, a very short woman. The ghost of the past or the present? What do we think? In the comments, tell us this picture. Miriam again says the ghost of the past. Yolanta and Emily, both. Okay, thank you for that. Emily and Icon, all of you agree that's the ghost of the past. In which case, this must be the ghost of the present. So there we have our 3 ghosts. We have the ghost of the future, we have the ghost of the past, And then we have someone who looks almost like Santa Claus, but he's wearing green, not red, has a long beard, and has a lot of food around him, and there's light and warmth. Our three ghosts. Let's get ready for ghost number one. Remember, it's 1 o'clock, and here she is, the ghost of Christmas past. There's a little ghost in Scrooge's room now. Is it young or old? Scrooge thinks. I don't know. It wears a white dress, but nothing on its feet. It has white hair, but a young face. It has Christmas holly in its hand, but June flowers on its dress. White fire comes from its head. There's a tall cap under its arm.
Are you the first of Marley's ghosts?
Yes, I'm the ghost of Christmas past.
Put your cap on your head.
No, I don't like wearing it.
Oh, all right then. So why are you here?
I want to help you. Come. It takes Scrooge to the window.
Wait! I can't fly!
Scrooge cries. Yes, you can. After I put my hand on your heart, the ghost says. It puts its hand on Scrooge's heart. Then they fly to the country. Scrooge looks around him.
Oh, it's my old home, he says.
Some boys run past. They're laughing. Scrooge knows all their names. They can't see or hear us, the ghost says. The boys say, Happy Christmas, and go to their homes. Scrooge smiles. Someone with no friends is waiting for us at school, the ghost says.
I know,
he cries. In the schoolroom, they find young Ebenezer Scrooge. He's sitting near a little fire and reading a book.
Look at that! People in books are Ebenezer's friends.
He laughs and cries. Then cries again.
Oh, poor child!
What's the matter? Asks the ghost.
I remember something from yesterday. A boy is singing a carol through my office door and looked through the keyhole and I frightened him away and I'm angry. Oh dear, I'd like to give him money next time I see him.
Scrooge looks at the ghost, but the ghost doesn't answer him. Let's see a different Christmas picture now, it says. Suddenly, the room changes. Ebenezer is bigger. Just then, a young girl runs in. I'm here, brother, she says. I'm going to take you home. Home, Fanny? Yes, father's better now and nicer. You can stay with us for Christmas. And always. You're never coming back here. Our carriage is waiting. Just then, Ebenezer's teacher calls. Take the boy's bag to the carriage. Then the teacher comes in. Are you hungry or thirsty? He asks with a cold smile. He takes Ebenezer and Fanny to the front room. They eat and drink. Then they leave. Your sister has a big heart, the ghost tells Scrooge.
Yes, but she's dead now, he answers.
True, that happens later when she's a young woman. But her son is alive now, your nephew, Fred. Yes. Quick, the ghost answers. There's not much time. Suddenly, the little ghost and Scrooge are in a garden. Scrooge sees a new Ebenezer. He's 30 years old with money. A beautiful woman stands near him. Ebenezer, you're different, she says. How? Ebenezer asks. There's money in your heart now, not me.
But I want to marry you, Belle, Ebenezer says. I love you.
Listen, Belle answers, I have no money. Your promise comes from poorer days. Everything is different now. Would you truly like to marry me?
Ebenezer's face goes white. Well, what do you think? He asks.
No, Belle says. So forget your promise. Ebenezer, goodbye. Be happy. Then she leaves him. I can't watch any more, Scrooge tells the little ghost. The ghost says, you must see one last picture from your past. They are now in a room, not expensive, but clean and nice. A girl is talking with her mother. Her 5 brothers and sisters are playing around them. Belle, as beautiful as always, but older, is the mother. She has a family. Just then, Belle's husband comes home with Christmas gifts. The children open their gifts excitedly and begin to play. Then they go upstairs to bed. So, there we have the Ghost of Christmas Past, and let's have a look at a few important points in chapter 4. True or false? The ghost takes Scrooge to his old school where he is alone reading. Fanny comes to take him home. The ghost takes Scrooge to see himself when he is 25 years old with Belle. Number 1, Cider says, Cider, is that number 1? Saida, is that number 1 or number I'm not sure which number, Saida. Is that, let's see, if you think that's number 1. Okay, so Saida says number 1 is false. Jolanta says number 1, but Tiana says it's true. So, yes, Tiana's really quick on the, yeah, well done, Tiana. Tiana's got true, number 1, true, number 2, and false for number 3. Tiana, I wonder why number 3 is false. You're absolutely correct. The ghost does take Scrooge to his old school when he's young. He's alone reading. He has no friends. Fanny comes to take him home from that school. But number 3 is false. Why? Tiana, perhaps you can tell us. Why is it false? The ghost does take Scrooge to see himself with Belle when Belle says, you only love money, not me. So what's wrong with the statement? Fatin tells us that he was 30, not 25. Well done, Fatin. And Yolanta says Ebenezer is about 30. Well done, Yolanta, as well. And Tiana says, yes, he was 30. Well done to everyone. You got it right. And Miriam, finally, with her answers correct. Okay, jolly good. So he was 30 and he didn't get married. Remember, Scrooge lives on his own. He has no friends. He has no wife. He has no immediate family. Let's see what happens when he's visited by the ghost of Christmas present. Chapter 5. Belle's husband speaks to her. Scrooge and the little ghost listen to him. Belle, you remember Mr. Scrooge? The husband says. Well, his friend Marley is dying, I hear, but Scrooge is working in his office alone.
Oh, take me home, Scrooge tells the little ghost. This is terrible.
You cannot change your past. At that moment, Scrooge feels tired. He leaves the ghost, lies on his bed, and falls asleep. When suddenly he hears the church bell. Ding, ding. 2 o'clock. Time for the second ghost, he thinks. He opens the bed curtains. A red light is coming from the next room. Scrooge gets up, opens the door and looks. There's Holly on the walls. A big man in a long green coat is sitting near a big fire. He has long dark hair and a beard and holly around his head. His eyes are smiling. There's lots of Christmas food around him. He has a torch in his hand. It gives its red light to everything. I am the ghost of Christmas present, the big man says. Come in. Scrooge walks in. Do you know me or my brothers? Let's see.
How many are you?
Oh, more than 1,800.
An expensive family, thinks Scrooge.
The big man stands up.
Ghost, take me with you. After the first ghost visit, I must learn more.
Put your hand on my coat, the ghost says.
Suddenly, they're in a London street on Christmas morning. People are looking at the shop windows. They're interested in food. Others are interested in gifts. Then Scrooge and the big ghost hear the church bells. Families in their best coats and hats go happily to church. They hear about the first Christmas and they give money for poor people. After church, they go home to eat their Christmas dinners. Sometimes the big ghost moves his torch around people's food. Its red smoke does something wonderful. When people are talking angrily and having arguments and fighting, they stop and begin speaking nicely. Because it's Christmas, they say. Scrooge visits different homes with the ghost of Christmas present. He finds his clerk, Bob Cratchit, at dinner with his family after church. To all of us, Bob says. To all of us, the Cratchit children say after him. And God bless us, everyone, says Bob's youngest son, Tiny Tim. Scrooge asks the ghost, is that ill little boy going to live?
I see a little chair with no child in it and a little crutch on the wall. Something needs to change or the boy is going to die.
No, Scrooge cries. He must live.
Suddenly Scrooge hears his name. Let's drink to Mr. Scrooge, Bob says.
That terrible man, his wife says.
Mrs. Cratchit, please, it's Christmas. Be nice.
Oh, all right. To Mr. Scrooge, she says with a smile.
After Scrooge and the big ghost leave the Cratchits, they visit the house of Scrooge's nephew, Fred. They arrive after dinner.
Aha!
So, before we come to the last chapter of this short abridged reader, true or false, Tiny Tim is the name of Bob Cratchit's son, Bob's son. Number 2, Bob calls Scrooge that terrible man. And number 3, Tiny Tim will probably die of his illness. True or false? And we're coming up to the very last chapter of the story. What do you think is going to happen? Yolanta's already in there. Yolanta says number 1 is true. Number 2 is false. I wonder why. Number 3 is true. Okay, Tiana has slightly different. True, false, and false. Miriam, true, false, and true. Well. Very quick. Afsane, true, false, but not sure. Saida, true, and false. Okay. Well, let's see, shall we? True, false, and true. So I'm going to say thank you, Miriam. Correct. Yolanta is correct. Sorry, Tiana. Number 3 is in fact true. According to the ghost of Christmas present, Tiny Tim will probably die. Number 2 is false. I wonder why. Bob Cratchit proposes a toast when he raises his glass to Scrooge. But he doesn't say, "That terrible man." Who says "that terrible man"? Do you know? In the comments, who says "that terrible man"? It's not Bob who says it. Who says it? Jolenta, his wife, says it. Thank you very much. Yep, but his wife, right. And Agnieszka says wife. Hello, Agnieszka, if you've just joined us. Right, so the last chapter, and let's see what happens with the ghost of the future. We're in Fred. Remember Fred? We're in Scrooge's nephew's house. Fred and his wife are playing 20 questions with some friends. Scrooge and the big ghost listen. Is it a man from London? Remember, they have 20 questions to find the answer. Yes, Fred smiles. And he loves money. Oh, I know, Fred's wife cries. It's Uncle Scrooge. That's right, Fred laughs. Everyone claps. Then the ghost takes Scrooge away. Scrooge looks at him. The ghost's hair is going white. His face is older too. What's happening? Scrooge asks. I live for only one day, says the ghost more quietly. I'm going to die soon. Then Scrooge hears the church bell. It's 3 o'clock. He can't see the ghost of Christmas present now, but a new ghost arrives. The third ghost, he thinks. It wears a black robe and a hood and says nothing. Scrooge can't see its face under the hood. He feels afraid. Are you the ghost of the future? He asks. The ghost nods. Yes, and moves away. Scrooge follows. They stop in an ugly little shop. An old woman takes some curtains from a bag. She's talking with the man in the shop. Scrooge listens. So he's dead, eh? Are those from his bed? The man asks. Yes, the woman says. You don't need bed curtains after you die alone. How much money can you give me for them? Ghost of the future. Who are they talking about? The ghost says nothing. Then Scrooge follows the ghost to the Cratchit's house. Here, Bob is talking with his family about Tiny Tim, now dead. The Cratchits look at Tiny Tim's little chair and they remember him. Then the ghost takes Scrooge to a gravestone near the church. The name on it is Ebenezer Scrooge. Scrooge looks at the gravestone. Ah, am I this dead man? He cries. The ghost nods. But I don't want to die alone. I'm going to change. He takes the ghost's robe in his hand and closes his eyes. He cries when he opens his eyes, and it's morning. He's in his bed with the bed curtains in his hand. I'm not dead, he thinks. I can change the future for me and for everybody. He hears the church bells, so he opens the window and looks out. A boy is standing on the street. You boy, Scrooge calls. What day is it? Christmas Day, the boy answers. 3 ghosts in one night? Oh, thank you, Jacob Marley. 3 ghosts in one night? Oh, thank you, Jacob Marley. He tells the boy, do you know the little shop down the road? I want the biggest turkey in the window. Bring the man and the turkey here. I can give him the money and Bob Cratchit's address. Run! I can give you some money for your help too. The boy runs down the road. After that, Ebenezer Scrooge is a different man. He visits Fred and his wife, and he says sorry. He gives Bob Cratchit more money at work and more holidays. He is a second father to Tiny Tim, and the boy doesn't die. In the end, everyone says of Ebenezer Scrooge, he's truly a man with Christmas in his heart. And so, with Tiny Tim, let's say, God bless us, everyone. The end. So let's have a quick look. We've only got a few minutes. Scrooge becomes kind and generous is my first true or false statement. Second one, Scrooge thinks I can change the future for me and for everybody. Unfortunately, Tiny Tim dies. Well, Tiny Tim does not die. It's a happy ending, as you can see. God bless us, everyone. Tiny Tim sitting on Scrooge's lap with a present in his hand, his parents looking on, Bob Cratchit and his wife, and his nephew, Fred, and his wife. God bless us, everyone. Anna, do you have a favourite character in this story, Anna?
Oh, that's a
I
really good
wonder.
question, Paul. There's a lot of great characters. I'm really interested to know what our viewers thought. Who were your favourite characters? Do type it into the chat box. My
Yeah,
favourite, I think, was actually Tiny Tim.
really?
Yes, yeah,
Why would that be?
I quite like the whole symbolism of Tiny Tim. I think it's a nice story of second chances and of hope, and I think that he represents that. Um,
Okay.
what did you like about the story, Paul? And who's your favourite character?
I can see that Malgorzata agrees with you. Malgorzata says Tim as well. Actually, my favorite character has to be Scrooge because he goes on a journey. It's a journey of self-realization, and through his dreams, his ghosts, his spirits, he comes to learn about himself
Yeah.
by looking and reflecting on his past and thinking about the present and being able to change. And that's my favorite character. Thank you, Nguyen. Do you have favorite characters, I wonder? And also, did you enjoy the story? Thank you, Nguyen, for your comment there about my reading. Tiana says Fred is your favorite. Your favorite character. Tiana, I wonder why Fred is your favorite character. Because he's so happy and he wants to invite his old uncle, miserable uncle, for Christmas dinner. Miriam, thank you for your comment. I'm glad you enjoyed the story. And Yolanta agrees with me that Scrooge, a bad character who finally changes for good. And
Mm,
Scrooge has had a wonderful impact on our culture. As we saw, Scrooge is actually, to call someone a Scrooge is not a very nice name to call them. Miriam says the employee, Bob Cratchit. Yes, he's a happy man in the end. And Julio says, Scrooge, we can change to become a better human being. Thank you,
ah,
everybody. I'm really very, very grateful for your for attending. And I'm going to hand over to you, Anna, for the closing. Merry Christmas to everybody as well, I should say. Anna.
yeah, so it's a brilliant story by Charles Dickens. So thank you very much, Paul, for that. And this version was adapted by Bill Bowler, and it was set in the 1840s. And we hope that you enjoyed today's reading as well. If you liked this live session, make sure you like it. And if you love it, make sure you love it on social media and do share it as well, as we'd love to share this with people who may not have been able to join the session today. So tag any teachers or students you know in the comments and let them know about this session. It really does help us out. We
And
want
especially over Christmas time. Sorry
and
to interrupt you,
especially
Anna.
over Christmas time as well. Yes, it's
Yeah,
the
it's a
right
Christmas
season for
story.
it. And we want to make sure these sessions are about you, our teaching and student community. So let us know what you'd like the next session to be about. If there's any graded readers you'd like us to cover, do type them into the chat box and make sure you're following us on social media so you don't miss any of the sessions. For our teachers, we're OUP ELT Global on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. And for our students, we're Learning English with Oxford on Facebook and Instagram. And the links should be in the comments as well now and on the screen below me too. So do give us a follow. So a huge thank you to Paul for joining me today. And we wish you all, if you celebrate, a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.